I made $180,000 off this piece of land behind me, and in this video, I'm gonna break it down step by step, exactly how I did it, so that you can do the same thing too.
So I found this deal listed on the market by a realtor. I just so happened to be looking on Zillow, browsing for lots for sale, when I came across this lot the same day it was listed. The realtor had listed this lot for $70,000. The lot was 10,275 square feet. And the first thing I did was to check if the dimensions were standard dimensions and not some weird shaped lot that would be difficult to build on. So all I did was Google the address of the property, and off the Google Maps, it looked like a regular rectangular lot. But to confirm and be 100% certain, I went to the Harris County Appraisal District Parcel Viewer map. And on this website, you can search by the address, the owner name, or the parcel number and see the actual dimensions of the lot. The parcel map confirmed it had 100 feet of frontage along the street and was 102.5 feet deep. And I know from experience in Houston that on a 100 by 100 square lot, you can either fit 4 front loader homes where the homes are facing the street directly, or 6 homes on a shared driveway down the middle. The shared driveway setup is very common here in Houston because it maximizes the land and allows you to build the most houses on the land to make the deal more profitable. Next, I verified that the utilities were available on the lot. I just went on Google Street View on Google Maps and I could see the power lines running along the street. And this lot was in an established neighborhood within the city limits, so electricity was readily available. For the sewer and water lines, I went to the City of Houston Public Works website, where they have an interactive map where you can search your address and see where the lines are. I saw that there were sewer and water lines running along the street. However, it was on the other side of the street than where my lot was. And that's not ideal because it costs more money to run the water taps and sewer taps that tie into the city's sewer and water supply because you have to dig and trench across the street and then repave the road afterwards. You will also see this red line ending on my property, indicating another sewer line was running off of my property. And this will end up being a much bigger issue than what I realized at the time. And I'll go into depth on that later in this video. After confirming the lot had all utilities and it was not a weird shape, I then went to check if it was in a floodplain. And a lot of Houston is in a floodplain, so it's pretty common. But if you are in a floodplain and you're building, there's different requirements and can be more costly. So I went to search on the Harris County flood map, and indeed, this lot was just inside the 500-year floodplain, marked in this green area. I've never done a development in a floodplain before, but my architect mentioned that I would have to build the houses several feet up, and there would have to be a civil engineer to design retention and drainage work underneath the driveway. So I knew it would be more expensive being in a floodplain and the utilities were on the other side of the road. However, I was getting the lot at such a cheap price that I thought the risk was worth it. Knowing that I could fit 6 homes at the asking price of $70,000, it would have been incredibly cheap with each house just being $11,666 for the land. So I immediately made an offer at full asking price, but the realtor said there was a lot of demand and a lot of calls she was getting. So I decided to raise my price above asking, and I told her that I can do $85,000 cash and close within 2 weeks. The seller accepted my offer and we went under contract right away. While the title company was working on getting title cleared, I ordered an existing condition survey. And that's the type of survey you need if you want to subdivide land into smaller lots, not your regular boundary survey. My survey company charged me $1,800 for the survey, and when I got it back, everything lined up and matched what was on the parcel map, so I knew I was good to go for closing. So once title was clear, I closed on the lot for $85,000 cash. And now, normally I close on all my land cash and do all the soft costs in cash, and I don't use a construction loan until I'm ready to actually build the houses. And my bank will count all the money I spent on the land and soft costs and count that towards my 20% down payment. So immediately after closing, I had my replat guy initiate the process of the replat to split that lot from 1 lot into 6 smaller individual lots. At the same time, I sent the lot to my architect so he can start working up a site plan and some preliminary designs that will fit into 6 individual lots. Now, a replat normally takes 6 to 8 weeks, but this project, it took 3 months because it was in a floodplain, and there's more requirements to get the replat approved when it's in a floodplain. So my replat guy charged me $7,800 but he also needed a civil engineer to do preliminary drainage plans, so I hired a civil engineer and paid $4,000 for the preliminary drainage plans. Now, in order for the civil engineer to do the drainage plans, he needed a topographic survey of the property, so I had to call my surveyor back up, pay him another $750, and send him back out to the lot to get a topographic survey. While all that was going on, I had my geotechnical engineer go out and do a soil report. So a soil report is when the geotechnical engineer will go out to the lot and take samples of the lot in several locations of the dirt, and then take that dirt or soil back to a lab and analyze it. The analysis of the composition of the soil will allow the geotechnical engineer to recommend the structural engineer what type of foundation will work best for that soil. Normally, a soil report is a 3-week turnaround time. So during the whole replat process, the soil report was completed and my geotechnical engineer charged me $1,300. Once the replat was completed, it was now time to move on to the plans. I'm talking about the civil engineering plans, the architectural plans, and the structural engineer plans. The same civil engineer that did the preliminary drainage plan quoted me $12,000 to do the actual civil underground retention and drainage plans for the project. But in order to do that, now that the lots were split up into 6 individual lots, he needed the elevation certificates of each lot because it's in a floodplain. So I called my surveyor once again for him to go back out and do the elevation certificates, and my surveyor charged me $2,600 for those. Meanwhile, my architect was charging me $17,000 for the architectural and structural custom plans for this project. It was just one custom design, and all 6 homes will reuse the same plan and the same design. Normally, my architect takes 1 to 2 weeks to create the preliminary plans, so I had him get started about 2 to 3 weeks before the finish of the replat, so once the replat is complete, he can immediately submit the plans to the city of Houston to get the process rolling. At the same time, the civil engineer had to submit his plans, and once he submitted his plans, the city sent me my WCR letter, and I had to pay my impact fees, which are one-time fees you pay the city to allow them to give you access to the city sewer and water line. The impact fee for this project for all 6 homes was just under $19,000. However, something else had popped up in the WCR letters that was causing an issue. The city mentioned there was an active 8-foot diameter sewer line on my property, and the city would claim easement around it, so I couldn't build over it. So my option was to either move and relocate the sewer line or completely abandon the line. This was that red line I saw on the map when I was doing my due diligence, and I didn't understand what it was, and I overlooked it, to be honest. I knew relocating the sewer line would get really expensive, so I decided to go the route of abandoning the line. My civil engineer charged me $3,000 to do the abandonment process. Now, this part took the longest. The city of Houston was so slow in moving and progressing the abandonment of the sewer line that this whole process took 6 months. It took the city of Houston almost 2 months just to go out there initially and try to locate the sewer line. However, they said my lot was overgrown and too much tall grass, so they couldn't do the search until I cleared the lot. So I paid my landscaper $4,000 to clear the entire lot all the way down to the dirt. No grass, no trees, nothing. Once I got that done, it took another 2 months to get the city of Houston workers back out there to search for the sewer line. And this time I went out there with them to go see what the whole issue was. We traced the sewer line and we verified that it actually ended on my neighbor's property about 20 feet from my property. So the map was incorrect on the sewer line being on my property. So that was great news, because I didn't have to demolish or relocate any old sewer lines on my property. However, even after the on-site visit, it took the city another 2 months to send me the letter that I needed. A letter stating that the sewer line was an error and it was not on my property, and that's been verified because the city planning department for the permits needed that letter from Public Works in order to approve my civil engineering plans. While that whole fiasco was going on, I had sent my architectural plans to my virtual assistant to create the 3D renders of the home. Now, I like to do these renders because 1, I can visualize the property and the design and make changes based on seeing the layouts of the rooms and the house. And I paid $950 for the renders. Once the sewer line issue was resolved, all the plans continued moving forward as normal, and it took another 3 months for the civil and architectural and structural plans to all be approved and stamped by the city of Houston. Once all that was done, I just had to pay the final permit fees with the city, and that came out to a total of $17,600. Once I paid that fee, The soft costs were officially complete, and now it was ready to break ground and start construction. Now, the original plan was to build the 6 homes, and I already had the construction loan approved by my bank ready to close. However, I didn't really like this area compared to the areas I normally build in, and the material prices were going up, and I was getting quotes higher than I expected for the new construction. So I was getting a little hesitant, and I decided to try to sell it as is, shovel-ready, turnkey to another builder that could probably build cheaper than I can. And this was my first shared driveway project and my first project in a flood zone. So I was a little hesitant on my cost estimates because I wasn't sure if I was budgeting enough money for those items. I'm very conservative when it comes to running numbers. I always plan for the worst case scenario, and the profit margins were just too slim with everything being at the worst case scenario. And I decided not to risk it and instead just sell it. I saw that just a few blocks over, 4 lots that were shovel-ready, turnkey like mine, sold a year prior for $80,000 per lot. Now, if you apply that to my property, that would be a sales price of $480,000. However, I have shared driveways and they didn't, so I knew mine was a more expensive design and build out than the other ones. So I decided to price my 6 lots for $390,000. That's just $65,000 per lot shovel ready. And I felt like that was a fair price. I had a buyer that was interested and we agreed on a price of $375,000. However, they kept delaying and then they kept dropping the price until eventually they dropped it all the way down to $275,000. And I was tired of their games and I said, no, I'm not gonna sell it to you for that price. After another month or so, I had another builder interested and we went under contract for $355,000, or just under $60,000 per lot shovel ready. So let's break down all the numbers on this deal and see what the final net profit was. I purchased the land for $85,000. The purchase closing cost was $1,500, and all the soft costs ran $93,000. The survey was $1,850, and the replat was $7,800. Preliminary civil plans $4,000, the soil report was $1,300, and the topo survey was $750. Next, I had the elevation certificates for $2,600, and then the civil engineering plans for $12,000. The architectural and structural plans ran $17,000, and the impact fees to the city of Houston was just under $19,000. The sewer abandonment from the civil engineer was $3,000, and the land clearing was $4,000, before I had the renderings for $950, and the final city permit fees for $17,600. During that year I held the property, I paid property taxes of $1,800 as well. So I was all in at $273,000. So I sold the property for $355,000, and the closing cost on the sales side was just under $1,000. So that brings my total net profit on this deal to just under $175,000. This project took way longer than I was expecting. I thought I would have it shovel ready in 8 months, but that whole sewer line abandonment issue dragged it on and delayed it to a 14-month turnaround. However, I still made a very nice 6-figure profit, and the best part about this strategy is that it's very scalable. I'm just emailing out to all the people to do their jobs. The geotechnical engineer, the civil engineer, the architect, the surveyor. There's nothing really on my part that I need to do or any real work I need to do besides coordinating everyone else. They all handled their portions turnkey for me. So since it's pretty hands-off besides a few emails for me, you can do multiple of these projects at the same time without being overwhelmed. Because while this project was going on, I had 3 other development projects that I was working on that all made 6-figure profits as well. So land deals, especially buying raw land and entitling it, subdividing it, getting it ready to build, can be very lucrative, only if you're prepared and you're strategic of what lots you buy. This is just another exit strategy in my tool belt. If I come across land that I don't love 100% that I want to build on, I can just sell it off to another builder and only keep the ones I really want to build on. It's a great way to still make 6-figure profits, but have a lot less risk than actually going through with the entire construction project. If you found this video helpful, please leave a like and check out my other deal breakdown videos that are packed with advice and tips.